right. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Stair. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. And like you said, I live in New York City, but my journey actually began way before that. I've been with the company for 7 years, but I started as an undergrad at the University of Texas at Austin. So I'm a proud Longhorn, hook 'em horns. So I worked for 4 years for a different company in a different industry. And then I decided to go back and get my MBA. So I got an MBA in finance from TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. These are 4 of my best friends from grad school. There are about 7 girls total in the class, but we're working on that slowly but surely. We'll have more girls in business school. But let me talk a little bit about my career before AT&T. So before I came to AT&T, I had a completely different career in fashion. I worked for a large luxury retailer, and one of our jobs was traveling the world, going to Fashion Week, and bringing the best luxury goods to our customers around the country. They talk a lot about pivoting in business school. I'd say a pivot is like a 90-degree change. This is more like a complete 180. So I went from the runway to, it sort of looks like a runway, but much lower fashion. This is a central office. And not everybody may be familiar with a central office, but you've probably driven by quite a few before. They're usually large cement windowless buildings, and sometimes they don't even have the company logo on it for security reasons. My central office was the Northern California hub for AT&T, so it was located in downtown San Francisco. It was about 11 stories, and there were 10 technicians working in there. So you could go hours working in a floor and not see anybody. So what happens in a central office? It's basically the inside, it looks like the inside of a computer, but it's the inside of where everything that happens for connectivity that powers your ability to make phone calls and to browse the internet. So we got to take my boss and my boss's boss on a tour of the central office in New York, and it just brought back memories. There's a very distinct smell in a central office. It's like kind of like warm plastic, just smells like a computer. It was really fun to be back. And then this is a technician who worked for me when I was in San Francisco named Brian, and he was kind enough to send James a picture when he heard I was doing this presentation. So I had a fantastic team there. So from the runway to the central office, seems completely different, right? And it really was. The day-to-day was different. It was different work, but the outcome's the same. And I think you'll find that in any business or any industry that you work in, at the end of the day, when you boil it down, you are delivering some kind of an objective for a larger purpose. I also was able to lead frontline employees who work on, we call central offices inside techs. We have a large union workforce. And then the outside techs work in what we call garages, and they are the individuals who are going to your house or your business and establishing connectivity. And in these environments, especially with frontline employees, they tend to have many decades of experience with AT&T. So I was, I think, 26 when I started that job, and some of my techs, a lot of them actually, had as many years just with AT&T as I was old. What you don't want to do is come in and be, an overeager MBA or undergrad and want to change the world. They know more than you do, and be a learner, be a student. So I think everybody's career should have peaks and valleys. I started at the very bottom in a central office. I knew nothing about it when I started. So I made a point to shadow each of my technicians for a full day. I wanted to learn what were the pain points, what was their day-to-day like, what motivated them. And as you climb that mountain, once you get too comfortable and you don't feel like you're learning every day, it's really time to start something new and go back down to the bottom and start all over again. I've had about 6 different jobs in the 7 years with AT&T, and this is when I came back to the chief data office, and I was running a software team, and I was running the product organization. And across all of these different roles, I've learned several key leadership aspects that I'll share with you. So the first is lead how you'd like to be led. The golden rule, seek to learn. You will probably be taking over a team. It's rare to be building a completely new organization where you're hiring everybody from the ground up. They know more than you, and rely on them and leverage your peers, the other managers in your level, to learn from them. Build trust. Doing what you say you're going to do sounds really simple and like everybody does it, but they really don't. Starting with small wins and consistently delivering, I also found it really important to be able to say the why. So you can't do everything that your employees are going to bring as a suggestion. The why is really important, and I think a lot of people miss that. They say no, and that there's a gap in understanding of why they aren't being heard. Enable ownership. Like I mentioned before, they probably know more than you do. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. I usually, when I start with a new team, I do keep, stop, and start, and I say, what would you like to keep doing that we're doing that's working? What would you like to stop? And what's a new idea that you have and you'd like to start? And then know the person, not the employee. Make it a point to really meet everybody that works for you one-on-one. Take them out to get coffee, learn about their family, learn about the trip they're about to go on. I still keep in touch with people who worked for me in the central office, and it's because you really built a genuine relationship. But being a modern leader requires having a global perspective. I was lucky enough to be able to go to India in April with the team and meet our offshore team in both the Hyderabad and Bangalore offices. And it was an incredible trip, and I now have 4 offshore team members working with my team. And we may be in completely different locations and completely different time zones, but we're one team, and it's one chief data office and one AT&T vision. If you've worked with me, you know that I reference IQ and EQ quite a bit. We all know what IQ means, but what is EQ? Well, it's emotional quotient. And I think this is really interesting. IQ determines 20% of business success, EQ determines the rest. Another way to think about it is IQ will get you hired, and EQ will get you promoted. At a certain point, we are all smart people. We can all do the job, but it's really the EQ piece that is where you can differentiate yourself, especially as a leader. And manage yourself. Put the onus on you to develop your career. You'll have mentors and sponsors along the way, and that's really important, but it is on you to make sure that you are doing your best day in and day out to be consistent. And operational excellence. These are little things that are really not little at all. They're actually big. They're things like following up. When you say you're going to deliver something, deliver it on time and to the best of your ability, and have great communication. You don't want your boss wondering if you're doing something. I assume they probably are because they're great employees, but I don't even want to have that little bit of brain space kind of wondering. So communicate the status of what you're working on. Don't work so quickly that you forget the little building blocks. And then quantify your results. I like to think about this in the STAR format: situation, task, action, and result. But really try to think about your day-to-day work and being able to quantify that, whether it's on your mid-year, your end of year, or just giving your boss an update in your one-on-one. If you can't articulate the projects that you're working on and how they ladder up to the larger organizational goals, and then the more broadly, the macro goals of the company, you need to kind of raise your hand, and your team should feel the same way. Make sure you're delivering on things that matter. And last, building your brand. I want to leave you with a quote that I think about a lot, and it's that the most important conversations about your career often happen when you're not in the room. So what do you want them to talk about? Well, it's usually not a conversation of one time when you had a big win. That's great, but what they're looking for when they're moving people up the organization are people who are consistently creating big wins, who are operationally excellent day in and day out, and who are really living the culture of the organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, that was awesome.